Who was Scott Parrish, the esteemed entrepreneur and dedicated community volunteer hailing from Fort Wayne, Indiana? What enigmatic truths lay concealed beneath the facade of his seemingly idyllic existence? For nearly 18 years, the circumstances surrounding his tragic passing remained an unsolved enigma that reverberated through the community. Robert Scott Parrish, a 49-year-old businessman, was the esteemed proprietor of Parrish Wallpaper and Paint Incorporated, a distinguished establishment in Fort Wayne. A lifelong resident, Scott was deeply entrenched in the community, celebrated not only for his business acumen, but also for his unwavering commitment to various local charitable organizations. A devoted family man, he was adored by his parents, Jim and Nancy Parrish, as well as his brothers, Mike, Greg, Tom, and Danny. His unwavering dedication to both his enterprise and the community rendered him a beloved figure in Fort Wayne. Scott's company transcended the realm of a mere local business. It stood as a testament to his relentless pursuit of excellence and service, garnering the trust and loyalty of countless patrons over the years. Yet, unbeknownst to all, beneath the veneer of this seemingly flawless life lay the harbingers of a tragedy poised to unfold. On the fateful evening of March 29, 2006, at approximately 6:30 p.m., Danny, Scott's brother, and his wife Patty grew increasingly concerned when Scott failed to arrive at work and did not respond to their calls. Alarmed, they ventured to Scott's residence on Vermont Avenue to ascertain his well-being. Inside, they stumbled upon a harrowing scene. Scott lay unresponsive in the bathroom, a gunshot wound to his head. In a state of panic, they promptly contacted the authorities. Upon their arrival, Danny and Patty recounted the chilling discovery of Scott seated on the toilet, fully clothed with the lid closed, and suffering from a grievous gunshot wound. The scene was nothing short of horrific, with blood splattered on the wall adjacent to the toilet and dried blood staining the cabinet before him. It was determined at the scene that Scott had tragically lost his life. He bore 2 contact gunshot wounds behind his left ear, one perforating the crown of his head and the other piercing his forehead. Additionally, a through-and-through gunshot wound marred his upper arm. Crime scene investigators discovered a brass-hued .40 caliber Smith & Wesson shell casing resting on the bathroom floor near the bathtub. Another casing lay on the floor in front of the toilet, perilously close to Scott's left hand. A third projectile was found atop the bathroom sink. As the investigators delved deeper, they stumbled upon an astonishing revelation: a clandestine marijuana cultivation operation concealed behind a false wall in the basement. Nearby, a Black & Decker cordless screwdriver hinted at recent activity. This revelation sparked a flurry of inquiries. Was Scott entangled in nefarious dealings, or was his property being exploited unbeknownst to him? Could this illicit enterprise be linked to his tragic end? The investigators now faced the daunting task of untangling a convoluted case, where Scott's image as a reputable businessman and community benefactor was suddenly overshadowed by the sinister secrets lurking within his abode. The following day, the coroner officially designated the case as a homicide. His wallet was discovered in the Heartland Church parking lot, over a mile from his residence. While devoid of cash, it contained his driver's license and library card. In January 2008, police conducted an interview with a witness who had known Scott for 3 years. When probed about the case, the witness identified a Hispanic man named Derek Rodney Johnson, known as Q, who was already on the police's radar. The witness characterized Johnson, a Texas native, as someone who frequently boasted of his involvement in robberies and homicides. On January 22, 2008, another pivotal witness emerged, providing crucial information. This individual recounted a conversation with Johnson that transpired a few weeks after Scott's untimely demise. The witness vividly remembered a conversation with Johnson in his kitchen on South Lafayette Street, where Johnson revealed 2 marijuana plants flourishing in a closet. He subsequently asserted that he had acquired these plants during a robbery. The witness recounted Johnson's admission of shooting Scott in the head when Scott attempted to reach for a firearm stored in a safe within his bathroom. Johnson also noted the presence of multiple marijuana plants in Scott's basement, although he only took 2 plants along with a small bag of marijuana. Additional insights from the witness suggested that Johnson had once possessed 2 caliber firearms, though their current whereabouts remained uncertain. On July 31, 2014, detectives conducted an interview with Johnson at the Westville Correctional Facility, where he was already serving time after pleading guilty to 2 counts of aggravated battery and 1 count of criminal recklessness for the shooting of Leonardo Puentes in Fort Wayne in 2006. He received a 34-year sentence, with the earliest possible release date set for 2029. After being apprised of his rights and signing a waiver, he acknowledged his acquaintance with Scott through a mutual contact, Witness 1, with whom he collaborated on construction projects. He disclosed that he initially procured marijuana from Scott via Witness 1 and later began purchasing directly from Scott. Johnson confessed to carrying 2 caliber Smith & Wesson firearms around the time of Scott's murder and was well acquainted with the layout of Scott's bathroom, having utilized it during a drug transaction. On July 1, 2015, detectives received a letter from Johnson in which he claimed that his gang, Northern Vatos Locos, had executed Scott for the theft of marijuana and money. He indicated that while he was aware of the perpetrator's identity, he could not reveal it due to the gang's code of silence. Johnson elaborated that he had reported Scott to his gang superiors and had ordered the hit, even mentioning that he received photographs of Scott post-murder from the shooter. Johnson explained that there were no indications of a struggle, as the gang members, feeling betrayed by Scott's dishonesty, had forced him to sit on the toilet before shooting him. He acknowledged his involvement in several robberies, but maintained that he never intended for anyone to be harmed. Johnson stated that the firearm had been transferred to a member of his crew and was ultimately sold to an unidentified person. He characterized the guns as a matched pair, one designed for left-handed use and the other for right-handed. Yet he denied ever possessing twin. The caliber Smith & Wesson firearms. When investigators reminded him of his earlier confession from July 2014, in which he admitted to carrying 2.40 caliber Smith & Wesson guns during his dealings with Scott, Johnson retracted his statement. He asserted that he had owned various types of firearms and was uncertain whether the bullet originated from one of his guns. The case remained unresolved for nearly 18 years without any arrests. In 2023, detectives Brian Martin and Darren Strayer resumed witness interviews. Ultimately, in 2024, new evidence and witness accounts surfaced, resulting in charges against Derek Johnson. His motive appeared to be linked to a marijuana cultivation operation discovered in Scott's basement. He confessed to detectives that he had shot Scott in the head and taken the marijuana plants. This development marks a significant advancement for the Fort Wayne community, providing closure for the Parrish family and delivering justice for the victim after nearly 18 years. Detective Brian Martin attributes the renewed interest in the case to playing cards distributed by the Fort Wayne Police Department in local jails, which highlighted profiles of unsolved homicide cases. Danny mentioned that he has struggled to sleep since that fateful night in 2006. He and his wife have established a memorial bench for Scott at Lakeside Park in Fort Wayne. The date for Derek Rodney Johnson's sentencing has not yet been determined. What has transpired regarding Dylan Rounds, the 19-year-old farmer from Idaho? How did a young man, celebrated for his passion for the outdoors, suddenly disappear? Is there any indication of his well-being? These inquiries have captivated the rural communities of East Idaho, where Dylan was raised amidst breathtaking landscapes in a farming environment. Dylan's parents, Justin and Candace, separated when he was merely 4 years old, resulting in him and his younger siblings alternating their time between Idaho Falls, where their father resided, and Twin Falls, where their mother lived. Despite the family division, both locations fostered Dylan's strong connection to nature, a vital element of life in Idaho. From an early age, he cultivated a profound appreciation for the wilderness, finding both peace and adventure in the great outdoors. Whether he was hiking through lush forests, fishing in pristine mountain streams, or exploring rugged landscapes, Dylan's love for nature was unmistakable. The young man, known for his adventurous nature and affinity for the wilderness, was reported missing on May 28, 2022. He had spoken with his grandmother that morning, mentioning he was securing the grain truck, and thereafter he was not heard from again. Dylan had been living in an RV camper on his own farm property near the Nevada-Utah border in Lucin when he mysteriously vanished. This prompted a homicide investigation that would reveal a troubling sequence of events. The initial search for Dylan led deputies to discover a pair of his boots near his farm, one of which had a bloodstain confirmed by DNA analysis to belong to Dylan, alongside DNA from a man named James Brenner found on the same boots. This raised concerns of potential foul play following Dylan's disappearance. Brenner was known to have been squatting on Dylan's property around the time he went missing, and according to Dylan's parents, he was one of the last individuals Dylan had communicated with prior to his disappearance. A detailed examination of Dylan's phone records indicated activity on the day of his disappearance at a secluded location in Lucin. The final signal from his phone was traced to the Lucin Pond. A comprehensive search of the vicinity resulted in the recovery of Dylan's phone. Digital forensic analysis revealed a time-lapse video recorded around the time he went missing, which depicted Brenner cleaning a firearm, with bloodstains evident on his arms and shirt. Authorities confirmed the presence of Dylan's DNA on the shirt after conducting an analysis. The mounting evidence strongly suggested Brenner's involvement in Dylan Round's disappearance and likely death. As investigators pursued the case, Dylan's family and the local community remained hopeful for justice, seeking answers that could provide closure to this heartbreaking situation. In March 2023, Brenner was charged with serious offenses, including first-degree felony and abuse or desecration of a human body, as well as a third-degree felony based on compelling evidence collected during the investigation. The prosecution's case was built on several critical pieces of evidence: the time-lapse video, the shirt worn by Brenner that contained traces of Dylan's DNA, and the DNA found on Dylan's boots during the initial search. Additionally, Brenner's concerning criminal history was brought to light, revealing a history of violence and a prior conviction for being a felon in possession of a firearm. As the legal proceedings unfolded, Dylan's family and the community clung to the hope of achieving justice and closure in this tragic case. The substantial evidence and Brenner's background painted a bleak picture, leaving both authorities and the public eager for a resolution to this sorrowful narrative. The investigation into Dylan's disappearance and presumed death continued, with authorities working diligently to locate his remains. The search for Dylan was extensive, covering the areas where he was last seen and concentrating on sites associated with the evidence collected in the case against Brenner. Unfortunately, the detectives were unable to locate Dylan, and the investigation eventually stalled. In 2024, a plea agreement was reached between the Box Elder County Attorney's Office and Brenner, which required him to reveal the location of Dylan's burial site in exchange for reduced charges. Nearly 2 years later, on April 9, 2024, Dylan's skeletal remains were discovered in a remote area of Lucin, located in western Box Elder County. The cause of death was determined to be a gunshot wound to the head. In response to this tragedy, Dylan's family created a dedicated website and Facebook page. Initially, these platforms served to provide updates on the investigation, share information about ongoing search efforts, and allow the community to submit tips that could assist in finding Dylan. Following his discovery, the family has broadened the focus of these platforms to support efforts in locating other missing individuals across the nation. Dylan's story serves as a poignant reminder of the consequences of violence and the community's unwavering commitment to uncovering the truth. On July 1, 2024, over 24 of Dylan's family members attended the sentencing hearing. Dylan's father addressed Brenner, stating, "Dylan helped you out so many times, and this is how you repay him. I just hope for the rest of your life you think about this." Dylan had employed Brenner on his farm and occasionally shared meals with him. Brenner chose not to speak in court and has not provided further details regarding the events that led to Dylan's death. When given the opportunity to confront Dylan's family and supporters present in the courtroom, he declined. James Brenner was sentenced to a maximum of 30 years in prison, with the judge recommending that the parole board consider keeping him incarcerated for as long as possible due to his apparent lack of remorse. Dylan's mother expressed, "While it may not completely resolve everything, this aspect of the court proceedings and the ongoing anxiety of uncertainty. What will occur? When will it occur? What if it doesn't occur? Can finally be put to rest." Another relative added, "Although we had wished for a different result, we have been aware from the beginning that Dylan was no longer with us." This latest update signifies that the investigation has come full circle, allowing us to finally bring Dylan home and conclude this chapter. In 1971, 6-year-old Lua Topic resided in Windsor, Ontario, Canada, with her parents and her 8-year-old brother, Michael. On the evening of May 14th, Lua and Michael were playing outside their home on Drouillard Road when a man approached them shortly before 9 p.m. He offered Lua $8 to accompany him for a walk, which she agreed to. To distract Michael, the man also offered him money to ride his bike while he took Lua away, hand in hand. When the two did not return, Michael informed their mother, prompting a call to the police. 4 hours later, at approximately 1 a.m., an officer searching the area with a flashlight discovered Lua's body in the backyard of a home on Hickory Avenue, less than a mile from her residence. The body was found near a gate leading to an alley, and investigators recovered 2 of Lua's teeth, alongside an adult tooth, indicating she had suffered severe and violent injuries. These items, along with other evidence, were collected for further analysis. Witnesses reported seeing a suspicious man at a nearby restaurant, but he was never identified. The case garnered significant national media attention, resulting in hundreds of tips from across Canada and the United States, with over 500 individuals initially considered as persons of interest. In the 1990s, DNA was extracted from evidence at the crime scene, and by 2015, investigators announced the successful creation of a DNA profile of the suspect. They enlisted the expertise of Parabon Nanolabs, a Virginia-based company specializing in DNA phenotyping, which helps law enforcement agencies narrow down suspect lists and generate leads based on physical appearance and ancestry predictions derived from DNA evidence. Parabon produced 2 distinct images. One depicted the suspect at the age of 25 when the crime occurred, while the other illustrated what he might look like now, around 70 years old. In December 2019, Windsor Police Staff, Sergeant Scott Chapman, revealed that the case of Lua Topic had been resolved. He noted that her case was among several cold cases successfully addressed through genetic genealogy techniques. Our case was one of the earliest in Canada to utilize this method for identifying an offender, Chapman remarked. On ancestry platforms like GED Match and Family Tree DNA, users can choose not to share their genetic data with law enforcement. Chapman explained that the police ultimately identified the suspect through the DNA of a distant relative found in a database, with assistance from Parabon Nanolabs. At that time, Windsor police opted not to disclose the name of the unidentified man, stating only that he had recently passed away and had moved west after the crime. While the resolution of the case was praised, the decision to withhold the man's identity faced some public backlash. In 2023, however, Windsor police revised their position and announced that Frank Arthur Hall was the individual responsible. At the time of the crime in 1971, Hall was 22 years old and lived less than 2 miles from the Topic family. He had never been considered a suspect or person of interest until the DNA evidence confirmed his involvement. Hall died in February 2019 in Edmonton, Canada, just months prior to the DNA match. Staff Sergeant Scott Chapman was the one to disclose Hall's identity, explaining that in 2019 there was uncertainty regarding the legality of naming him due to the lack of precedent. This uncertainty contributed to the decision to withhold Hall's name at that time, Chapman stated, recognizing that the legal landscape has evolved as genetic genealogy has gained wider acceptance. Before the information was made public, Chapman traveled to Edmonton to inform Hall's family. They were taken aback but demonstrated remarkable resilience, according to him. It is important to remember that whatever actions Frank Hall took in his life do not reflect on his family, Chapman remarked. They too have been affected by this revelation. Chapman noted that police documentation remains ambiguous about whether Hall's residence was examined during the initial inquiry in 1971. However, Hall had been known to law enforcement in Windsor and other areas, primarily for property-related offenses such as theft. While his name was not familiar to the general public, other law enforcement bodies have been aware of Hall since 2019. With Hall's name now public, Chapman is optimistic that it may generate additional leads from the community concerning other investigations. This could potentially revitalize various inquiries, he stated. It is certainly a possibility.